Hey guys, welcome back to Jenny from the Chopping Block. And tonight we have a remarkable human being with so much value to bring to us all, Alex Terranova. Hey Alex, how are you tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
Living the dream. So I want to introduce Alex. And firstly, let's start talking about, I want to hear more about the Accomplishment Media. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, Accomplishment Media, it's funny. Like 2 years ago, I was obsessed with podcasts, like as I think you are and so many people are. I would listen, specifically, I would listen to Lewis Howes' School of Greatness, like every day, all the time. I would listen to some NPR stuff and some Gary V things, but like mostly it was like Lewis Howes and like NPR.
I love his. Yeah. I'm a big Lewis Howes girl.
I literally would listen like in the morning while I was cooking. Mm-hmm. And when I launched my first podcast 2 years ago, and then about a year ago, I got to start co-hosting my mentor's podcast. And he really wanted to launch a podcast studio and help other coaches and leaders create a space to have a voice. And his company's called Accomplishment Coaching. So he had Accomplishment Media. And when I was getting ready to publish my book, he approached me to be my publisher. And that was pretty cool, right? Like your mentor is like, hey, can I publish your book? And in the talking of this, we just had the same vision, right? My company is called DreamMason, and I wanted to build DreamMason Media, like a platform for people that have, I want to say like loving, caring, transformation, leadership voices to like make documentaries, to make movies. And he had a similar vision. So basically, he asked me if I would help him launch Accomplishment Media, create Accomplishment Media. So I said yes, because he's my mentor. I think he's amazing. He's brilliant, and I get to learn from him. But also because we're doing this together, and we're launching something really small. We're building it out. And so this year alone, like in 2020, we went from having like 3 podcasts on the network to we have about 10 now. So I have 2, he has 1, and then we've found like other coaches and leaders that want to have a voice, and they're all different structures, all different timelines. Some have guests, some don't. Some are 2 minutes long, some are an hour long. Beautiful. But yeah, now we have about 10 podcasts on Accomplishment Media. We're always looking for people that want to launch podcasts there, and I get to do this really cool thing where I get to help people flesh out their creative vision. Like, what's your show about? What kind of guests would you have on? You know, how do you structure a show? Do you want it to be like a serial, like every episode is off each other? Or do you want them to be like yours, like mine, where they're like independent?
I love that. And what's your podcast about?
So I'm on 3 right now, which I think I'm like you. Like we just like love you. Like, how much fun is this for you?
Oh my God. I love it.
Right?
I've never loved anything more.
I always say on my podcast days, I get out of bed like really excited. It's like my favorite days of the week. So thank you for giving me a Monday podcast day.
Thank you for coming.
So my original podcast is called the DreamMason Podcast. And that originally was innovators, leaders, creators, basically, and I would bring them on and talk to them about what they've overcome. So people would tell me about like the disability they had, or how they, their marriage fell apart, or their 10 failed businesses, or the car accident they got into, and then what they accomplished out of that. And that's how it went for a while. And then it's evolved now, where it's kind of like now I just bring on people who I think are like really interesting, who I think I want to learn from, who are inspiring. Right now, I've actually been looking for people who want to have really difficult conversations about race. Wow. Because it's obviously the world that we're in, and I really believe the only way we can kind of change anything in any topic is to create empathy, understanding, listening, communication. So, as a white person myself, it's like, hey, I want to bring people on of all different backgrounds, races, religions, and hear what it's like to be them. Because, you only know what it's like to be you, right? Like, I only know what it's like to be me. But we think that the world is the same for everyone, and it's not.
It's really hits me hard right here. That's amazing. Yeah.
So so that show is becoming like it's kind of just evolving into things that interest me. And then I do a show called Flip the Lens with 2 other entrepreneurs. And basically we kind of roundtable it. We talk about topics. So we'll say something like, we'll talk about faith and we'll just roundtable it for 20 minutes.
So fun.
And yeah, it's kind of to see perspectives of different people. And that one, it's like if one of us can't be there for an episode, we find someone and bring in a guest co-host. That's like been, I don't know, 3 months that show's been out. And then I co-host my Mentors podcast, which has actually been around for like almost, I don't know, 18 or 19 years. It was online radio before there were podcasts, and that's called The Coaching Show. And he basically just brings on like the brightest minds of coaching, or people that are involved in coaching, or people that can help coaches. And we really talk to educate, to transform, to help the coaching community grow and expand through like a podcast medium.
Beautiful. So that actually leads into my next question. So you're a business coach and a performance coach.
Yeah.
And you're certified through what organization?
So through the International Coach Federation. So here, I'll give you the gist, which is why I think this is important. I think that like we live in a time where everybody's just making shit up about life, right? Like people are like, I'm an entrepreneur, and you're like, oh, what business do you have? And they're like, well, I don't have one yet. And it's like, okay, that's great. Like I love that you're saying what you're going to create, but there's so many of us that are like just making up, and you don't need like any qualifications.
Yeah.
You and I can just be like, I'm a doctor now, or I'm a lawyer. That's not allowed. And it's okay. You can do whatever they want, but I think it sucks for like
how do the work.
Well, not just people that do the work, but how does the consumer know what they're getting? You know, if like you hire someone and they're like, I'm a coach, like what are you actually getting? What does that even mean? You know, with somebody like Tony Robbins, you know what you're getting because he's out there in a million ways, right? Even if you hire Gary Vee, you know what you're getting because he's out there. But there's a lot of people that they're really smart, they're really intelligent, they really know how to sell and market, but they don't necessarily know how to coach. So the International Coach Federation is global. It's the governing body of coaches. Now, you don't have to have a designation from them to be a coach. I think I would love to see in the future that like you actually did. So then because I think it's like a safeguard, right? Like, you know, when you're hiring a therapist, they've done the work, right? You know, when you're hiring, right? If you go to even in the restaurant industry, like they have NSF, right? To like to like certify that things are safe for food service.
Literally, yes.
So why can anyone just say like, great, I met somebody once who was a lawyer, and he's like, I'm a coach for lawyers. And I was like, what does that mean? And he was like, well, I show lawyers how to like have great law practices. And the reason he did it was because he hated having a law practice. So he would rather coach people on it. And it was like, wait a minute. That seems like not like you're just going to tell people how to create what you created, but you hate what you created. So the ICF certifies people at 3 different levels based on like mastery and like how many hours you've coached. You actually have to turn in recorded calls with clients so they can listen and evaluate how you're coaching. And the way I would differentiate it for people that don't really know, or maybe there's confusion around coaching, is I think there's consultants who are experts at something, right? You want a lawyer, you want an expert at law, and you go to them for that. When you go get your car fixed, you want an expert mechanic. He's a consultant on cars. So I think consultants are experts. And then I believe coaches it's not my job to be an expert on your life. It's my job to help you pull out your internal wisdom, your internal knowledge, your internal knowing. And I think the beautiful thing about that is it creates diversity, it creates creativity, it creates self-confidence, it creates self-love, versus me just being like, hey, you should do it like this, or you should do this, or you should do this, which I think that's a consultant. And then therapy, I think, is a completely different conversation, but that's more often emotionally based. It's often more about the past. And there's things that are diagnosable in therapy, right? Like addiction and mental disorders and whatnot, and traumas and things like that.
That's amazing. And I appreciate you filling me in, because, I'm not a coach, and I'll have a ton of friends that are coaches, and I was always curious about the whole world of it, because it just like seems like it's
the Wild West
thing to do. It's also the thing to do. Like everybody that I know in self-development is like coaching, and So I want to ask you, what inspired you, and how long have you been doing it?
So I don't even know how I like ended up here. It's pretty, I know how, right? I wasn't asleep, but like I was in the hospitality business, right? Like at 16 years old, I got my first job at, it was like 14 years old. I got my first job at a Haagen-Dazs in a mall, scooping ice cream. So it was the first time.
Did you eat the ice cream all the time?
So much. So much. And I saw so many movies because I was like in the mall. And then at 16, I got a job at a restaurant as a host. And I was like host / busboy. And then by, I think, 17 or 18, I was like waiting tables. And then by the time I was 21, I was bartending. And somewhere in that range, I was the person that was like training all the people. And next thing I knew, I was like 25. I'm opening restaurants. I'm running restaurants. I'm doing this whole thing. And basically at 32, I drank way too much. I went out way too much at night, spent all my money on either tips or booze or restaurants. I got all my self-worth from like women, chasing women, getting laid, like that conversation. And through the things I could buy, what kind of car was I driving, like all the status, ego-driven stuff. And I got really lucky. At 32, I got asked what I was grateful for by my cousin at a restaurant in Costa Rica with my whole family. And I didn't know how to answer the question. And I burst into tears.
Wow, dude. I have a similar experience. That's crazy. I'm around the same age.
Did you feel, so like I felt like I got punched in the face. Like it felt like everything just hit me.
Overwhelming, yeah.
And like woke me up. Mm-hmm. Did you feel like that? Did you have
I had like a spiritual awakening. Like I was like, that's when I got introduced to this whole new world.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I just had that moment, and then I went back. I was living in New York City at the time, and I went back to New York, and I was like, I got to change my life. I didn't even know what that meant, but I started reading books. Mm-hmm. So I started reading books by, business leaders and entrepreneurs and self-help gurus and just anything to like increase my knowledge. And next thing I knew, I started meeting people that were calling themselves coaches. And my first thought was, these people are out of their, can I say,
say whatever I want?
I was like, these people are out of their fucking minds. Who's this positive? Who's this optimistic?
Literally.
I was super negative. Nothing was possible. I was a total victim about everything. And I actually had to meet 7 coaches that all went through this program called Accomplishment Coaching. The one thing in common, they all said it changed their life. I met them in all different places. There was no connection. It was like all these networking things. And the 7th one, I found her business card on my dresser one day while cleaning. And I was like, what are you doing, dude? All these people are offering you free support and you keep turning it down. Mm-hmm. So I called her. I did a session, blew my mind, because I realized like I'm the only problem in my life. Like I'm the reason. My life is exactly how it is because of me. The problems I have, the wins I have, it's all because of me. And instead of hiring her as a coach, I signed up for that program, Accomplishment Coaching, which was a year-long, super intensive deep dive into like every part of your life and psyche. And she ended up coaching me also for 2 years. But I think like at the beginning of that program, she said to me, what's stopping you from like actually taking this on and becoming a coach? And I couldn't think of a reason that, and I kind of felt like I didn't know what I was going to do in the restaurant business. I had done everything except from own a place. I had been on reality shows for like, I'd done all these things and I just was like empty and fulfilled.
Hold on. Tell me everything. So I know you were on Kitchen Nightmares, American's Next Great Restaurant, Wine Crashers. That's so awesome. Tell me about that experience. I know you were still in that, were you still in that world? Were you coaching?
No, so this was before. So when I was like 28, I was running a bar in Venice Beach and I got laid off. And it was the first, I was like 28 years old. I was partying way too much and I didn't know what to do. Like I didn't want to just go get another sucky
literally
bar manager job. I kind of wanted to bartend. I didn't really know. But it was actually the first time I got like really humbled and I was like on unemployment for a minute, and which was a whole thing in itself, right? Like that, I had never thought I would be on unemployment. I thought there was like meant bad shit about me. But what was cool was in that moment, all of a sudden during that time, my ex-girlfriend at the time would always watch the Food Network. I never did. And I would sit there and I'd watch the Food Network and I'd be like, man, and I remember I was super judgmental. I was not transformed. I was negative. And I would watch the Food Network and be like, that person sucks on TV. That person's boring. Like I would just judge and critique everyone and be like, I would be better if I was
like
on
Simon
TV.
Cowell. You can't you can't dance. What can you do?
Yeah, totally. And I would be like, I would be better if I was on TV.
Ooh.
And I started going to like all the networks and applying to the shows.
Cool.
And I went to an audition for this show called America's Next Great Restaurant. I had a pitch for a restaurant. You had to bring like what your idea for a restaurant would be. And I went through, I don't know, series one, interview after interview after interview after, filming. And I got to like the top last 22 people or so. And then those 22 they brought in, they actually picked you up at where I lived in LA, and they picked me up and they took me to like a secret location. And you didn't know how long you were going to be there. And I made it, I think, to like the top 7 in the show. And basically it was like Top Chef, but instead of being a chef, you're like an entrepreneur.
So dope.
It was pretty fun.
Love that.
And I did an episode of Kitchen Nightmares, which I always forget about it because it was just one episode that I had written about a restaurant that they were doing an episode on. And they invited me and a bunch of people who had written about this restaurant because this restaurant was terrible because the owners didn't believe Gordon Ramsay. They wouldn't believe. So they brought us on. And what always reminds me, I have friends text me screenshots and they're like, dude, in this one shot, I'm standing like Gordon Ramsay's here and I'm like right behind him for like a whole segment. So yeah.
I don't know if you're still into like that whole world, but I watch him on his Instagram live stories with his daughter, and it just reminds me so much of me and my dad, and it's just cute. Awesome. Yeah, he's tough in the kitchen, but he seems like a sweetheart.
Is your dad like that? Like he's tough in real life and super sweet with you?
Well, yeah. Like I don't even know how anyone else works with him. Like I don't talk to him really in the kitchen because I just know what he needs and I just give it to him. But
that's awesome.
Scary. He was actually in the New York Times because he taught at the New York Restaurant School, and the author of the article said that she felt like he was like leading a platoon of Marines into battle. That's how he ran his class. I was like, that sounds about right.
Oh my God. I think I was actually really good. My favorite partner in the restaurant business was a chef that I worked with in New York. And he was very much like very stern, very disciplined. And I very much was the person who would be like, guys, we're not curing cancer here. Like let's bring some levity. Let's lighten it up.
I hate rules.
Well, like you need both.
Made to be followed, made to be. I hate rules.
You gotta have both. Like you can't have like one without the other. And I think the thing was like you bring balance to each other. And I think that was my job, is to like bring levity, to bring humor, to bring play, to keep everyone balanced. The last restaurant I opened in New York City, I made everyone like close their eyes and do like a little meditation before we opened the restaurant. And I think the owners stood there and they were like, what is happening? They liked it. It was all good. But I think everyone was like kind of surprised. Like, what is this guy doing?
That's amazing. Love that. So I want to ask you a question because, you were in that world for so long, and I kind of get my hallucination about it is that you were kind of tired of it. You had you didn't really want to have to go out and get another bartending job, which I could totally relate to. So I'm really curious to how you stepped into the next phase of your life, because you're happy, you're doing what you want to do, you're in your passion, you've been doing it for a long time and you could kind of be remote about it. How do you like know that was like your next step, and how did that all happen?
Well, you know, I did that coaching session, right? And I didn't know that I would leave the hospitality business. I didn't know that when I signed up for this course that it would like change everything. I knew that I felt stuck. I knew that I felt stagnant. I knew that I felt unfulfilled, but I didn't know what else there was. I mean, so many of us, right? We start doing something from like college or even younger, someone's right out of college. And it's like, how do you transition? You've spent all this time in this industry. You've built all these credentials. You've all this like expertise. And I remember I was sitting there and I was like, had been working with this coach for 3 months. And I was like, I think I want to do this. Like, I think I want to be out of the restaurant industry. And she was like, well, what's stopping you? And I was like, well, money. Like, and she's like, okay, so do you think you could become homeless? And I was like, I don't. She was like, what do you mean? And I was like, I just don't think that would happen to me. I'm not to say that it's bad that it would happen to somebody else, but I just don't think I think my resolve, my resilience, I don't think I've burned enough bridges, like family and friends would help me out. And I just didn't think that was she was like, okay, so what are you afraid of? And basically we kind of like narrowed the things out, right? And all of a sudden it got down to like failure. Like, what if I don't make it? What if I become a coach or I do something like this and I fail? And I think that fear stops a lot of us, right? From lots of different things. And I just, in that moment, the only thing that was there was fear of failure, right? Which isn't it's not tangible. It's in here, and she was like, great, when are you going to quit your job? And I was like, I'll give them
ever.
I was like, I'll give them like 90 days notice, because I had a big role in the company. And she was like, when are you going to give them your 90-day notice? And it was like, I gave myself a week to like think about it and write it up. And then she was going to hold me accountable to give it to them like the following week. And I launched my coaching practice. Basically, at the end of that 90 days, I actually like went full time as a coach. And the first 2 years weren't pretty. They were brutal. There was a lot of credit card debt. There was a lot of pretending like I had money when I didn't, like, as in, I'll just buy that. And, you know, and the next 3.5 years, it's always been an uphill climb. And I think that's but ultimately it's been sticking with it. And there's been plenty of days where I was in tears on the phone with my mom and dad being like, I don't think I can do this. I suck. I don't believe in myself. No one's ever going to hire me again. You know, there was a lot of those days. And ultimately, like, putting one foot in front of the other, just keep going back at it, keep practicing.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And everything you're saying, I could resonate with. And I just want to ask you something just came through to me. Like, so everything that I've been learning about, like in this space, like to either have your own business or like your avatar, like the people that you want to appeal to. And for me, like, you know, I'll never forget my friend Amanda. She was actually my last guest on the show. She called me and she's like, we were talking and she's like, what would your avatar be? And I'm like, honestly, it would be me before it would be the old me.
Yeah.
She's like, wow, like that's really interesting. Cause like on one of the challenges she was on, that's what they were saying that you're supposed to do. So is that part of like when you look for your ideal clients, like how do you find them? Like what do they look like? What is it about them? Or is it just because I'm going to ask that.
What are you going to say? Is it just everybody?
Well, that's the thing. Because like when I first met Jake Ballantyne, and he came on one of the masterminds and he was talking about how you have to have like a target audience, say. And it's like, no, like for me, I'm like, I want to help everybody, or I want to like, why do I have to choose? Why can't, you know, they choose me or whatever it is. So I'm just really curious because I'm still kind of working through that thought.
So, you know, I mean, it depends. I'm not going to say, I really don't believe there's like a right and a wrong way to do anything. There's ways that people have shown repetitively that you can do things, but then there's always people that break the norm, right? And if there was only one way to do anything, then we'd never have anything new, right? If there was like, we'd all just be copying the one way and then we'd have no innovation and nothing new. So I think it's important to like, to keep an open mind and not have to agree or disagree with anything, like right way, wrong way, but go, man, what can I take from that way? What can I leave? What can I take from that? And to like go, what works for me? I've been super lucky. I've probably created my avatar like 4 or 5 times over the course of like 5, almost 6 years. And a lot of the time my avatar was like me. It was like somebody who was like successful, professional, but doesn't want to like conform to suits and corporate, who wants to be able to like have tattoos and facial hair and say fuck when they want and not have to like be like, such a straight line. Somebody who wants to like be like whole in the sense of like, I want my business to be multi-dimensional. I don't want to just be a coach. I want to have a podcast. I want to write a book. I want to like, I want to help people that have goals that I'm super passionate about and people that have goals that I'm not passionate about that they sound interesting. So I think that there's not a right or a wrong way. I've also been lucky as in my business I've really gotten almost every client from referral. Beautiful. I haven't had like the, online people just find me or social media. So, but I think there's also an evolution, right? Where you were asking about you. I started my first like 10 clients were almost all women and they were almost all like 30 to 60. And I think at that time I needed to learn empathy and compassion. I didn't have anyone at that point. And I think they needed to learn that they could have healthy relationships with men that wouldn't take advantage of them. And I think the universe kind of just set that up for us.
I love you, universe. Sorry, I do.
And when I got to the end, I was like, okay, are these my ideal clients? Probably not. And then I learned. So yeah, so it gets tailored and shifts and evolves.
It's like music to my ears. That's the best thing I've ever heard about it. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think it's really cool to know what you like, but how do you know what you like unless you try a bunch of things? Mm-hmm. So I work, right now I love working with, I like to say leaders, creators, like leaders and creators, but people that are rebels, people that don't want to do it the way that it's always been done, people that want to break the norm, people that want to create innovation, people that want to lead differently. Like leadership has been done traditionally through like a very authoritarian, very much like how you talk about your dad in the kitchen, Gordon Ramsay style, Donald Trump style, like very much like the leader is the final. And I don't believe that's leadership. I think that's one form, but I think like from my experience, like that's not the kind of leadership I want to follow.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter about like what their beliefs are. It's really like the energy of it. Like I want to follow somebody who asks questions, who cares about the people around them, who takes input, who their job as a leader is to bring up other leaders. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of my clients or people I help also do that. They own small businesses, 10 to 30 or 40 people, and they want to not only elevate their companies, but they want to elevate their people.
It's beautiful. Damon John just popped in my head because I was listening to his live this morning and he brought on somebody that he does business with. And I fell in love with him more during this time because I think he's such a great leader. And he's just talking about everything all his shows, I just find so much value in. And, today he mentioned how like the person that he helped, create their business, and it was something to like do their own haircut or something. And then, it was something I wasn't interested in, whatever. But, and then the guy had like a family business where they harvested truffles, and it was kind of cool to learn about that because I love food and that was cool. But then at the end, he mentioned how much like the people that he's helped, like how he's able to find value and they help him by showing him like, in the small businesses, like it reminds him of how he wants to run his companies. And I just love that. I found that was really beautiful for him to say that.
I mean, I agree. I learned just as much from my clients as they probably learned from me. It's a different type of experiential learning, but I take so much from my clients. And that's why I think it's important to have clients that you like working with, because then you get to learn from them.
Beautiful. Yeah. I want to talk more about your book because I love the title. Can you just give us a little? I'm going to post the link on this live, but I want to hear more. It's Fictional Authenticity. So can you tell me how that was created and what that's about?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about the title, right, like fictional is fake and authenticity is real, and if we just go really short about it, until I was about 32, 33, 34 years old, I think it even took a little while after I transformed, I thought I was super authentic. I thought I was being super real. I thought I was super bold. I thought I told the truth. I thought like me being an asshole was like part of who I was. Like that was authenticity. And when I realized, probably it was just like, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, was what I thought who I was and all the things about me that I thought were real were all fictionalized. They were like all made up. You know, I remember being a little boy and thinking like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, the character Zach Morris from Saved by the Bell. Like these were all these people that I like wanted to be. I wanted to have like muscles and be strong, like these action heroes. I wanted to be like charismatic and get the girl like these, you know, guys on TV shows. And I remember as a little kid, like kind of being like, oh, well, they would do this and they would do this, and creating an identity based on this. And I think we all do this, I think, to a degree, from our heroes, our sports, the people we read about or the people we look up to. I think women and men both do it. Mm-hmm. And I think often it's subconscious. Mm-hmm. And I think you see it. There's a study that they did where they looked at people to see how self-aware people were. And it was like 90 or 95% of people thought they were self-aware, like they knew themselves. And when they did this study, they found out only 10% of people do.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah, but think about this. When's the last time you remember not speaking up? Like you had something to say, but you like bit your tongue for some reason or another.
Really interesting you say that, because I've been working through some codependency things. Yeah. And like, so I've been empowering myself to not stay silent and retreat. Nice. So it's really interesting you pointed that out, but I've been trying to voice more of, you know, my, you know, when I'm uncomfortable or when I'm sorry?
No, that's authentic, right?
It's hard, but I'm doing it.
But doesn't it feel more authentic to like,
oh my God, like, life-changing.
Yeah. And I think about all the ways that people do that. People don't speak up. They don't ask somebody out. They don't go ask for a raise, or they get a job offer and they don't counter with the amount of money they want. You know, they don't tell people the truth. Somebody's like, hey, how do I look? And you're thinking, God, that's not the best look for you, but you don't say it because you don't want to hurt their feelings. It's not authentic. And for me, we could be unleashed to so much more potential and so much more power if we were truthful and honest. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean truthful and honest from being mean. I'd like to tell someone they don't look good just to be a jerk, but from actual care to say, hey, like, that's not my favorite outfit on you. Like, I actually love to trust that people can handle the truth. Mm-hmm. And then at least they can work with it.
I love that.
So, Fictional Authenticity is my journey of discovering who I really am, but then also layered throughout the book, I ask question after question so the reader can ask themselves the same questions that I asked myself. And it's never ending. Every day there's ways to become more and more authentic.
I love that. I'm definitely, just so everyone knows, I'm going to get a copy for myself, and I'm going to give one of his books away in my giveaway. So if you're here, let us know and comment so I could see you. Yeah, that's amazing. Wow. You blew me away with that. I cannot wait to read that. I love that. So interesting. And I'm just curious, have you had like what, did you go to college and stuff?
I went to 4 colleges in 4 years. So, like, as I don't know if you picked up, like, through this whole, I don't do anything the way you're supposed to do it. So I find my own ways. I did not want to go to college. I went to college because I wasn't ready to like provide for myself. But I basically dropped out of my first college, and then I dropped out of, well, I didn't drop out of my first college, but then I went to, community college, got credits from UCLA, and then I graduated from USC. But I didn't know what I was going to, I was a history major. I was just like, just give me.
I was going to ask you if you had any communication courses that you took or something.
No.
Okay.
I was like, just give me a degree. I didn't even read a book until like 5 years ago. I think it's really key, like how we can transform and change our life. Like I started reading like 5 years ago, and I like really re-taught myself to like learn and take in information.
Mm-hmm. I forget what I was reading. I'm reading a few books, Psycho-Cybernetics, Think and Grow Rich. But I don't know if I'm doing a couple courses, but something I read today was like, it's never too late. Like you could reinvent yourself at any age. Like I don't know. It was just like, it resonated because it's not with me right now, but it's just like a reminder, like you can always change your life. You could always create a new identity or whatever you want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's a term, you've seen the movie Hitch.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a moment in Hitch where the guy he's working with says like, I am like something. And he's like, who you are is fluid. Something, I'm not quoting it perfectly, but I think that we say like, I am, and we're like, I'm an introvert, or you don't know me, I'm somebody like this. And it's like, no, it's not. Who you are is fluid, because in any moment you can decide you want to be something else, and then you can start practicing showing up like that. And then you're different.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Wow. All right, my friend. Well, I want to ask you, did you ever cook in the restaurant industry?
I did. I created my own recipes for some of the restaurants.
So can you share your favorite with me?
So yeah, I have two. I don't have the recipe right in my head, but I can. So this is 10 years ago. So 10 years ago, at a restaurant I was running in Los Angeles, created the mac and cheese poutine fries, which we made macaroni and cheese in a cast iron pan, and we used like 3 or 4 cheeses. There were jalapenos. There was obviously cream. And then we would take crisp cut fries. And the reason you got to do crisp cut is because crisp cut is like a chip, right? It can like hold stuff versus a regular French fry. Which is a mistake when people do like carne fries or something. Like use crisp cut. You can like pick stuff up on it. And then we'd make the fries, and then we would lay the fries out, pour the mac and cheese over the fries, and then over the top of the mac and cheese put like bacon and tomatoes and jalapenos. That was probably my favorite in the restaurant business. But outside, my favorite thing to do, which I can't eat right now because so for all of 2020, I decided to be a vegan. I was never a vegan.
Oh, I'm doing that right now too.
Nice. It's been great for me. But my favorite recipe to make is baby back ribs and homemade barbecue.
Oh my God, stop it.
But I can't make it. I mean, I can make it. I just can't eat it right now, which is kind of.
Do you remember that commercial for Chili's? It was like, I want my baby back, baby back, baby back. I used to sing that like it was a song. My family would like get so annoyed, but like then I would do it just to be annoying. I want my baby back.
You should come when my mom does some of the best baby back ribs I've ever had, and like to the point where now she makes them on Christmas and Thanksgiving because we're so like staunch about we need to have them.
I could get down with some ribs. I love ribs. I like picnic ribs, baby backs. Now I'm gonna have that song stuck in my head for 10 years.
You can still have barbecue sauce. We can still make barbecue sauce though.
So now, is it like classic barbecue, or is it like? Tell me more about that side of it.
I don't know where my mom got her recipe for the barbecue sauce, but I would say it's a classic barbecue sauce that I go a little heavy on the vinegar with. So
I was going to ask. I love that. That's right? So weird. I feel like I already knew the answer somehow.
I'm like, I think I really like a classic barbecue sauce with like a little heavy on the vinegar, so it like becomes a little bit like a North Carolina, and And I like it just like a little bit of like spice, not so spicy that someone couldn't have it, but enough that you like feel the vinegar, you feel the spice, you feel the kind of tanginess and sweetness of a barbecue sauce.
I thought pepper, like peppery, spicy.
Sure, it works.
All right, my friend. And then I want to ask you, I ask all my guests, if you had a superpower, what would that be?
No, I mean, it's so tough because like there's some selfish ones.
Tell me, what's the first one that came to your mind?
Well, there's ones that I would choose because I wouldn't want to make it. There's too much good you could do for the world with a superpower. But if it was a selfish superpower, I don't want to time travel. I would want to see like everything that happens in the future, everything that happened in the past. I'd want to know what really happened in situations. But if you actually could give me one that I could actually use, I would want to be able to walk around and touch people and let them, but you got to listen to the end of this, right? But touch people so they can see what it's like to be somebody else.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Right? So like you could take Americans and have them know what it was like to be like an African, refugee, or anyone, like poverty, not poverty, race, religion. And I think that like if people could see through each other's eyes and through each other's experiences, how could you be mean and terrible to people?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Wow.
I
lost my words. Yeah, that's amazing.
Thanks for that question.
Thank you for answering it that way. That was deep. Enjoyed that. Wow. And then I just wanted to see first of all, I want to know how you're doing throughout this whole unique point in history. How have you been through I mean, there's a lot going on in the world right now, but how have you been through the whole process of that and this?
When COVID started, I was like, honest, like it sounds bad, but I was like doing really well in the sense of all of a sudden I was like, man, I was like doing the things I went inward. I was spending a lot of time with my family. I spent time with like the people that are closest to me, and I was doing a lot of work at home, and I was reading a lot, and it actually felt like healthy. Like I felt like I was slowing down. So the first 2 months of COVID, I was like, man, this feels really good to like not have to go out and kind of do all the games that we play as a society, like spending money and doing all this stuff. And at the same time, I was feeling heartbroken for all the people that really needed money that couldn't work, right? So it was like, for me personally, it felt good, but the world was suffering. And obviously people were dying, which it's like, I'd rather people not die and me just be living a normal life. When I don't even know what to call it, when the moment we're in right now, we're having like real race and police brutality conversations across the world. I'm like just sad.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like really sad and heartbroken I'm sad and heartbroken that like a lot of the stuff was like people couldn't see it. Mm-hmm. I'm sad and heartbroken for people that don't want to see it. Mm-hmm. I'm sad and heartbroken for people that are affected by it, like the Black community on a regular basis. And there's not like a clear cut, like, hey, do step 1, 2, and 3, and we'll have this problem solved. Yeah. So I just feel really like my heart feels really open and really exposed to like everyone. And I think that's the hardest part, because people are just like, they're so hard on each other, especially with social media. And I think we need to be hard on each other, but I think we also can bring compassion and kindness and empathy, because I think that does encourage more connection and would actually help everybody move forward and help everybody transform.
And I think your superpower would help with that. And I think we can do that. Like I try to live my life that way, where I try to think about it. I think that's part of the key. You try to think about maybe what that person's going through, or, like, I don't know. I was also I think it knocked me down like a little bit. Like once I realized what was actually going on, I was like, I had 2 days where I just like cried and prayed, like,
yeah.
So it's like, it's tough. This is tough stuff we're going through as a nation.
And I think like, I think the thing is, it's some people have been going through it forever, right? Like for some minority groups, people of color, religions, people that have certain, gender identities, like they go through like this every single day. And I think that all of us really need to be able to take care of ourselves. I think that for a lot of us, everything that's going on feels newer, and it's not really, but it feels like it. And I think everybody just needs to take care of themselves well. Whether you're on like the front lines fighting or where you're not sure what to do, you got to remember to take care of yourself, because if you don't take care of yourself, how are you going to like take care of anyone else?
Big time. Yeah. That's always like a constant reminder for me, because I'm go, go, go. Then sometimes I'm like, oh, shit, I gotta recharge. So is there anything that maybe you want to share with the audience that's helped you through this, aside from, taking care of yourself and filling yourself up with positivity, and I don't know what else you do?
I think, the thing that's helped the most really right now is trying to like do the thing that I'm offering to everyone else, which is like, I just, on my podcast, on the DreamMason podcast, I started inviting people of color and like people of different, maybe like marginalized religions or genders or whatnot, to actually come have a conversation. And it's not about like us having like a straight up conversation. It's really me trying to understand what it's like to be them. And my hope is that the listener will actually get to hear what it's like to be them also, which would create some openness, some empathy, some of that like, oh my God, I never even thought that people dealt with things like this, or that's how it felt. And I think that helps a little, because I feel like at least I'm creating conversation.
Yeah.
And, I don't know that if anyone had the exact solution to any problem, we wouldn't have problems anymore, right? But we've had the same problems on Earth since the beginning of time. So I'll never forget, like, when I kind of woke up to everything that was going on. I was in an interracial relationship, and I turned to him, and I felt like I was not being naive and like kind of insensitive to it, but I was like, I almost couldn't believe that it was real. And it was, but I was just like living in my own, like everyone thinks like me, or everything, everything's this way. So it was tough, It's if you think about it, imagine if you were wearing blue sunglasses, like blue sunglasses with blue shades, everything in the world would look blue, right? And if I were wearing sunglasses with yellow shades, everything would look yellow. But if I were able to come along and take your blue lenses off you and put yellow lenses on you, all of a sudden you'd be like, oh my God, this is how you see the world. And I think the thing that's so difficult is we have 9 billion realities on this planet. And yeah, there's crossover, obviously, but like, and the realities that we all see out of these lenses were created from the time when we were little kids. And so it's not like you can just walk up to someone and go, hey, you shouldn't say that. And you might be right, but like the way their brain is wired since they were 5 tells them that there's nothing wrong with the way they were saying it. It's actually right. And so I think like we actually have to be able to go deeper than just like see what's wrong and fix it. We have to understand why people operate the way they do. Then we can get lasting change.
And so now I'm just really inspired by what you're doing, and I have a lot of similar interests, and I want to be able to share with my audience some of your stuff. So how do we find your podcast?
So it's Spotify, iTunes, but if you go to the DreamMason.com, thedreammason.com, 2 M's in there, you can find my book, you can find my podcast. I also have an authenticity audit, which is kind of fun, which basically is a free quiz where people can find out how authentic they actually are.
You mean how unauthentic they are? You said 90%. Sure. I'm scared. Does it give you tools on how to?
So if you take it and you want to have a call,
where we get the coaching.
Well, yeah. So anyone who takes it can do a free call with me to like talk about it, because I think one of the things is it's going to tell you a result, but the result isn't good or bad. It's not like 90% is good, 0% is bad. The result just shows you if you're authentic. But does it matter to you if you want to be more authentic is the thing, right? If it show, let's say you got 60%, you might go, great, I'm fine with that. That's working for me. But if you get 60% and you're like, but I'm not speaking up in meetings, I'm not asking that person out, I'm not asking for a raise, it's probably not working for you. It's a pretty cool quiz, and it's fun. They're all things that you can like think about. Like, it's like, hey, you're sitting having lunch with your boss and he has spinach in his teeth. Do you tell him?
I love it. That's amazing. Oh my God, that's amazing. So I have a question for you. I know we're getting almost to an hour now, but so I'm thinking sometimes we curb our behaviors, our language, our conversations because we don't want to hurt the other person's feelings. But is that taking away from our authenticity?
I think so. So it doesn't mean that it's not right or wrong, right? Like, I don't walk up to people on the street and go, that's a terrible shirt you're wearing. That doesn't make sense. Like, what good would that do, right? And that's just my opinion anyway, right? That's not the truth. I think that when I look at authenticity, it's like, how does it serve you and how does it serve other people, right? If your partner comes to you and says, what do you think about this? I think they want to know the answer. Because then we can also start to form relationships where if you want somebody to tell you look good, ask them. Say, will you tell me that I look good? Like, you can do that too. I think that authenticity is that we've all practiced so much being fake. We've done so much pretending. Oh, I want to spare their feelings. I don't want to hurt their feelings. I don't want to tell them the truth. I don't want to tell them what we really think. But what if we could be authenticity from love, where even when we said what the truth was, it was we were committed to being who we truly are with the people that we truly love, so that if I'm always pretending for you, if you and I are best friends, but I'm never speaking my truth to you because I'm worried about your feelings, we're not best friends because I'm pretending all the time.
I keep like literally picturing my best friend in my mind because she's so tough, but she's the best. And I wouldn't want it any other way. We're tough on each other. We've actually, you know, it's amazing. That's true.
Well,
so
you
true.
know she cares about you. You know she cares about you.
And it's always what I need to hear. Yeah.
And again, like, we get the opportunity. I remember authentic can also say you don't want it. I asked my mom for something recently, and I was like, hey, I don't want your opinion. I like asked her to read something I wrote that I was like, I'm trying to get published. And I was like, hey, I don't want your opinion about the subject. I just want you to like help me clean up the language. Like, authentically, I didn't, because I didn't want to bring in a whole nother dynamic into what I was working on. And she was like kind of taken back. And I was like, Mom, it's not that your opinion, I love your opinion, but for this, like, I'm pretty set on how I want this to go right now. I just need some help cleaning up the language. And 3 days later, I was like, hey, if you have an opinion, do you want to share it with me? At that moment, it was authentic to like, I didn't want it, but then I did. So I shifted.
Wow.
You know,
it's amazing. All right, Alex, is there anything else you want to share or?
No, thanks for doing what you're doing. Thanks for sharing, like getting people on here and, you know, from people like your friends to, you know, huge names that people idolize and like creating conversation and dialogue. I know that I wouldn't be sitting here living like the best existence I've personally lived if it weren't for listening to other people's podcasts and other people's shows and reading the books people wrote. So I just want to be able to help do that for other people.
Thank you so much. And I'm so happy to get to know you better. You're a total rock star. And Thanks. I can't wait to see you do your thing. So I'll definitely be sharing with everybody his work. And I hope you enjoyed tonight's episode of Jenny from the Chopping Block. And we'll see you tomorrow. I have another great guest coming on tomorrow. Missed you guys. Have a great night. Ciao.